Hello, this is Greg out from the Green Gregs. I bring you a special guest tonight, an active duty member of the Marine Corps, to talk to us about how the military will react. What will happen if they suffer from an EMP attack, electromagnetic pulse? Now, a lot of people think that the military is going to keep rocking on and everything will be normal in their camp. But I've tried to tell a lot of you guys that things aren't normal after an EMP, and things might really shock you as to what would happen, how well our nation will be unprepared for an event like this. So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you Joshua Owen, active duty Marine. Joshua, talk to us. Tell us, in your humble estimation, if an EMP struck a unit like yours, a Marine Corps unit, how are they going to respond? What's going to happen day 1, 2, 3?
Hey, Greg. First of all, there's some things that I can say and some things that I can't say. So I just want to say that up front. Obviously, everything that I'm going to say is unclassified. You can search it on the internet. And most of what I'm going to say is in the article that I was published in the U.S. Naval Institute Proceedings magazine. So all open source. But currently, there's communication problems. There's accountability problems from what I know. And it's only on what I know on my level. But I don't think that we are prepared as we seem to be. Questions that we can ask are, if the grid were to be attacked tomorrow, whether it be an EMP, coronal mass ejection, whatever the case, how would leaders command and control their Marines, their service members, so forth and so on? How can you command and control someone you cannot even feed? How would each base communicate with the other base? Now, are there things in place that I'm not aware of where they can communicate via Faraday cage if it's protected, so forth and so on? I'm not sure. I'm not privy to that. But as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anything like that. How much fuel, water, food is in the reserve? If the supply chains are completely broken, where are we going to get all that stuff from? Are we going to rely on outside civilian sources, so forth and so on? Will we be able to keep not only the Marines fed and their families and the corpsmen and other joint services that are on that base? But what about those civilians that start coming to the gates 3, 4 days, 10 days after an EMP? Once the supply chains are broken, you're not getting your EBT card, and you don't have money to pull from the ATM, and all the banks are closed. Where do you go? The police force, are they going to go home to their families? What's going to happen to the Marines? Are they going to go home to their families? We look at what happened during the Civil War when Sherman started burning all the cities. Most of those, that was one of the biggest desertions that we've had in the U.S. military. Those folks wanted to go home. They wanted to check on their families. They wanted to check on their farms to ensure that, that person wasn't going to come and burn their city and burn their town and burn their farm. So I think there's a lot of questions that leaders need to ask. I think there's a lot of questions that we need to ask. And currently right now, I'm not feeling very comfortable, if that makes sense.
By the way, I want to say I like your hat, Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
I'm wearing a Roll Tide color shirt today in celebration of that. So there you go. Well, friends, this is a serious situation, and to underscore what he's talking about, you don't have to go all the way back to the war between the states. Just look at Hurricane Katrina. The police forces abandoned post. A lot of your emergency providers abandoned post, and it did so within a matter of, some of them were abandoning post right off the bat, but within 3 days, there was very little to maintain law and order or any semblance of civil service. The organizations were stripped because everybody was going home to take care of mama and the kids. If you think somebody's about to beat the door down and take care and do something to mom and kids, you're going home. And by the way, a lot of stuff is not written in the history books, but back in the war of what I affectionately call the War of Northern Aggression, I used to, when I was a kid, I talked to the old timers who had aunts and uncles and parents that were alive in that period of time, and they would tell me that stories about rape and robbery and pillaging and innocent people getting offed. I've even been told this. Now, this is one you'll never read in the history book. I've been told of people hiding their slaves. Very few people had slaves. That's something that's not understood. But those that did, some of them would hide them because the Union troops thought that they were in the war because of slavery, and they would actually terminate slaves if they could catch them. And so they were being hidden to protect them. So that's one of the things I have heard from certain sources. Now, I'm not going to sit here and debate that one way or the other. The thing is that things get tough and people worry about the folks at home. They're going to go home and take care of their family before they do anything else. And it's the same in the military today. There's a lot of people that are going to go home and take care of family, or even just try to take care of themselves. So, and sometimes, you know, you got your family on base, like just your kids and wife, but you know, you've got to take care of them. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, my family is important. You know, Jonathan Hollerman has a couple of books out called Survival Theory, and Survival Theory 1, Survival Theory 2. Survival Theory 2 just released. I just finished the book, and he poses a question that I seem to think about a lot. I'm going to read it off my computer. It says, how will the average soldier respond to a radical and unrecognizable new life filled with utter confusion and deep desperation without access to regular food and effective oversight? So when you think about that question, I think he's 100% right. And I'm going to talk something about nutrition really fast, because I'm certified in nutrition and I've studied it for a while. You know, bodybuilders, people that are into fitness, so forth and so on, when they make their MREs, there's certain things that are considered. And how much does a human being, how many calories does that person require? And I want to put this on a larger scale for people to think about. So we talk about, you look at the back of the nutrition label, and it's, you should on average, based on 2,000 calories a day, so to speak. So, but what's called a basal metabolic rate, otherwise known as your BMR. If I was on my deathbed and literally had a feeding tube in, and I'm waiting, to come out of a coma or whatever the case is, my BMR is how many calories I need to sustain that same weight on my deathbed or on a breathing machine. As soon as I blink, move my arm, yawn, breathe on my own, then that requires more calories. So that factors in what's called an AMR, an active metabolic rate. So according to the BMR, there's a formula, and you guys can search this up online. There's a BMR calculator. There's plenty of evidence, research, and scientific stuff to go along with this thing. But basically, a 195-pound male needs roughly 74,000 calories a day. That's a little bit more than 74,000 calories. Excuse me, a month. 74,000 calories a month. When you multiply that by a year, that's over 800,000 calories in 1 year for one person who's only 195 pounds. Look at your people who are, 6'4", 6'5", 230, 240. Some of these obese people that are 300-400 pounds. The BMR is the amount of calories they need, again, to sustain that weight. So if a male weighing 195 pounds needs 74,000 calories a month, multiply that by however many Marines are in a unit, multiply that by how many family members you have and how much they weigh, you're looking at an astronomical amount of calories to sustain just to live and work. So imagine you're outside, you need to go out and garden, you need to go out and hunt, you need to go out and defend yourself, you're sweating, you're burning way more calories, it's hot, it's cold, whatever the weather is, your body needs more calories to sustain whatever you're trying to do for that specific day. So when we look at what John Hollerman said is how will someone respond to this radically changed society or situation? Yes, I'm going to care about my family. I want to make sure they're taken care of. The police force is going to want to take care of their family, but food is a big thing. And do we have enough food stocked up somewhere? I don't care where it's at, Mount Weather, I don't even know where it's at, in order to sustain a force. We're not just talk about if we get hit here in the United States, what happens if we get hit, other places in the world if we're fighting abroad. So I think leaders and commanders should really think about that and consider, what does the supply chain look like if it's completely broken? How do we fix and how do we resupply in the event that there is no electricity and your cars aren't working? How do you boil water for, thousands of people on a base and keep that sanitary in order for them to drink good water so they're not developing diseases? How do you cook for that amount of people? A lot of questions I ask, but I just don't really think people have thought about that. And going back to your point on Katrina, and even when you look at FEMA and some of these other, disaster organizations, they don't plan for more than a month. Some of them don't plan for more than a week. A few years ago, and I don't know what it is now, so don't quote me yet, FEMA was telling you to plan for 3 days, a 3-day disaster. Make sure you have enough food in your house for 3 days. And I would argue that you need to have enough food in your house for at least minimum 6 months, just for any natural disaster. And that's not even talking about EMP. I'm a type of person, I don't like to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't think everyone should too. We shouldn't rely on one source of getting our food or, our resources. But In all of those natural disasters that's happened around the world, we've had someone from somewhere come and help. But if an EMP happened tomorrow, no one's coming. And if they do, they're not coming for a while. And then that offers other opportunities for invading forces from the north, south, and on the western and eastern fronts from the oceans and whatnot. So, yes, we have a problem, and I think that people need to think about it a little bit more and take don't look at us like we have tinfoil hats on. It's a real threat. There's research, there's source documents out there from all the three-letter agencies from the United States. It's just no one is really doing anything tangible to fix the problem. So that's what I got.
Well, that's really it. The whole problem is being ignored and swept under the rug, and yet it's our Achilles heel. It's our weak point. It really disturbs me that we have transformers in the United States that have key, practically black box components that are made in China. One of these transformers is at Sandia National Laboratories, and what they have found is classified, highly classified. Now, why would they classify it if there was nothing to it? A lot of people are concerned inward there may be systems in there that are connected to cell networks that would enable China just to disable it at will. We not only to monitor it, but perhaps to disable it. So, and maybe they could time it with other transformers to cause a cascading failure of the type that causes them to get burnt out. So this is overloading other transformers by shutting down certain ones that could overload other ones and cause massive failures of these high-powered transporters that take forever to replace. Yeah, no cavalry is coming because it will be everywhere. Nobody can come so much because they're dealing with the same problem. It's going to be ubiquitous. So our military may not be able to serve and protect us in a time like this. And even the guys out in the submarines, one, they probably won't have any communications. They're not likely to get the EAM message, and they're going to be wondering how in the world they're going to be able to get back home, take care of their families at this point in time. There's a lot of things here that are in play that a lot of people just don't take into account for what could happen. But if you really want to see an example, don't take my word for it. Don't take Josh's word. Just look back in history. This has happened. It's happened repeatedly. And he pointed out the case from Sherman's March to the Sea, where a lot of the forces in the Confederate Army went home because their mom and their sisters and their aunts were being attacked. And yeah, I've heard reports of those attacks, and it's not pretty. There was, and that's what happens in war, by the way. Any invading army, every invading army on earth has created great atrocities. There is no such thing as a war that's civil or an invading army that's going to be just attacking the military on the other side. It's never happened. Never has happened. Never will happen. I don't care who the army is. I don't care what country it is. I don't care what church invades another nation. That's what armies do. There's good and bad in everything, and it's the bad ones that will do these things. That's just the thing you got to bear in mind. Their people are people. There'll be good people in any military. There'll be good people in the worst of militaries. There were good soldiers and good people even in Hitler's army. That don't mean that they're all bad, but there's also in any military plenty of badness that is going to pervade in the local communities. So an event like this, it's not just that. The people and the communities are going to be raiding homes when they're getting hungry, and people in the military want to know that too. So there's a lot of reason that these posts will be abandoned. Again, in recent history, you just got to look at Hurricane Katrina. People that were duty bound, honor bound, sworn oath to hold their post, left it in a matter of 3 days. Didn't take long at all for those forces to disintegrate. And so there is a recent historical example of this taking place, and it's not the only time. And by the way, he referenced John Hollerman. I've interviewed him, I guess, probably about 3 times on this channel already also. And John Hollerman, he's got extensive experience in the military with training people to evade and deal with situations like this. He's seen that kind of stuff. I've interviewed General Ken Krasniak. He served in Yugoslavia and these other countries. They broke apart, Serbia, and he's seen this stuff firsthand, what happens in societies that disintegrate. It's not pretty. This has happened over and over again, and it's happening probably, you only hear, what you hear out of Ukraine is what they want you to hear. It's the prettied up, burnished story. We don't know what's really happening on the ground unless you're there. I guarantee you, in any country where there's a war on the ground, it's not a pretty picture. In a country where the grid's down, it's going to be ugly for everyone. Military, civilians, police force, sheriffs, nobody's going to be having a good time. You got anything you want to add to that, Joshua?
No, Greg, I agree with you. It's a situation in which we don't think enough about. It's a situation in which we don't do enough in the community to let people know about what's going on. If anyone hasn't seen or heard of, is Grid Down, Power Up. It's a great documentary, narrated by Dennis Quaid, who's an actor, and it really explains what's going on, and it kind of covers things that was, especially what's going on the grid, and it even goes back years ago to 60 Minutes did a thing on the grid. It goes back to what happened in Metcalfe, California, when someone shut off that substation. Talking about how vulnerable the grid is. We've had over 721 attacks in the past decade on the grid, and that's between cyber and things like Metcalfe, California, things like what happened in up and around Carthage, North Carolina, last December, to include Washington State, possible attacks similar to those in South Carolina. So attacks on the grid are happening. It's just a matter of getting the word out, and word of mouth is the best way to communicate to people. You see a good movie, you go tell someone about it. You go to a good restaurant, you tell someone about it. It's talking about how vulnerable the grid is. People don't want to talk about things like that because it's doomsday stuff, or it's things that makes me uncomfortable. But sometimes we have to talk about the uncomfortable, and we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable. So,
well, you can't hide your head in the sand and expect everything's going to get better because you're not looking. In fact, that's right. When you duck your head in the sand, that's when the train hits you in the rear end, the one that's being derailed probably. So our infrastructure is under attack, it seems. The frequency of these things seem to be picking up. But we are in a proxy war at best with Russia. Russia is alluding to the idea it may be more than a proxy war already due to the support that we're giving to Ukraine. Whether you agree with that or not, I am not talking about that. I'm talking about how it's perceived, and that could cause actions to take place here in America. It is perceived by many that the United States was behind the attack on the Nord Stream pipeline. Whether you agree with that or not is immaterial because it's perceived by many, and many will try to act on that. There will be those who will be trying to attack infrastructure here in the United States. We know by their own admission that Iran has numerous sleeper cells in the United States, and among other things, they've targeted over 20 of our power substations. And we heard this from over a decade ago, and it turns out that they probably have a lot more by now. And what else have they targeted? And what else can these sleeper cells do? I mean, they don't, they could do many things in one sleeper cell. They just have one mission. Okay, we're going to attack this, and that's it. Who knows? They may be hitting several things. They may be behind some of these train derailments, or maybe somebody else is. Maybe it's an inside job. We don't know. But what we do know is this: our system of supply chains, having all these long chains, long supply lines, be it rail lines, power lines, pipelines, highways, bridges, is all vulnerable, very vulnerable. And if you're in a situation where there is discontent, malcontent, distrust, then you're going to have huge issues. And those are about to fester up on us, and it could bring our society down. Just that alone. Continued attacks on infrastructure can be devastating. The grid down would be devastating. It's been estimated 9 out of 10 people will be gone within a year due to societal collapse. And most of that is due to disease like cholera and diphtheria and things like that. That's going to wipe out vast amounts of people, stuff that we're not accustomed to in our modern society. Not to mention starvation and gangs that'll be roving around toward the end. It's not going to be a pretty picture. Much of this could be averted if we work, concentrate together to harden the power grid and to tamp down some of the just hatred that exists in the world today, if it were be possible to. It's getting harder and harder to do that. But in the meantime, guys, you need to prep. You need to prepare. If you've not got that message already, I don't know where your head's been, but we are looking at potential. We're talking about having a war with China, possibly within 2 or 3 years. We're talking about possibly a war with Iran just any day now if Israel attacks. There is a little bit of activity going on in Ukraine, if you haven't noticed. It could spill over and get bigger. And whatever side you take on any of these is immaterial to the point that you need to be prepared here at home to take care of yourself, your mom, your kids, your wife, whoever needs attention. So this is critical. And I've said many times, I got a couple of videos where I went to big box stores, showed you about buying beans and rice. I've done a video about how cans last. I've done numerous videos about long-term, about eating from the weeds and the trees, which is absolutely free. But I've also said you need calories. You need, and it's hard to get that out of the weeds and the trees. I mean, you'll get nutrition, but the calories is hard to get. You need to be able to have food you can store, especially somewhere hidden when they come through and clean your house out. So that's why I promote this long-term food storage. You can get this at prepwithgreg.com. Go to prepwithgreg.com. You can find this stuff that lasts 25 years. It's got 2,000 calories per day. And if you hear John Hollerman, when I've had him on my channel, he tells you that's a lot compared to what most others provide. And so he will explain that to you in no uncertain terms.
I have 12 of those sitting right there.
There you go.
That doesn't even scratch the surface. So yeah, I'm glad you pulled that up.
Yeah, some people, will disparage those, but I got quite a few. And the cool thing about it is I can bury those real easy. That can is sealed. The pouches inside are sealed. They're easy to carry. I just picked up 2 weeks of worth of food, and I can toss it around like a little ball.
Did you get that Patriot Supply?
No, it comes. Yeah, you go to prepwithgreg.com, and that links you into My Patriot Supply. And there's a lot of other prepping supplies in there too, including water filters. And that's the main thing you got to be able to do is filter and sanitize your water. It's two different things: purify and sanitize water. And I got a video on my channel explaining how to do that through many different methods, by the way, including using plastic bottles and leaves and sand and charcoal that you can make, things like that. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but you got to pay attention and be prepared now, because if you're not prepared now, when it hits, it's too late. And we're on the verge of just major mayhem coming at us in too many different directions right now. Our grid is at risk, and if nothing else happens, I have people tell me all the time, well, it'd be an inside job. It'd be an inside job. We're going to ourselves. They don't even have to do an inside job. All they got to do if they want to take down a grid is continue to do nothing, as they're doing right now, and the sun will do the job for them. You got to understand, they don't have to do a darn thing to bring our grid down. It will go down eventually due to the sun if we do nothing. So
amen.
That's why you need to take care. That's why you need to prepare. That's why I am an active member of 2 different power grid defense committees. I'm trying to get this grid hardened. I'm trying to avoid this in the first place. An ounce of prevention is worth a gallon of cure. I don't want to see it happen. I've heard a lot of you say, oh yeah, it'd be great if we get rid of all these kids playing on their phones and the internet and this, that, and the other. Yeah, it'll be great until that nuclear power plant or even the spent fuel rod pool cooks off and starts irradiating you and everything you're growing. How many tell me, well, I got power, I got this, I got that. Well, what's going to happen is people out in the cities are going to be pouring out like a fire ant nest that got kicked over, and they're going to be scouring the countryside, and there's not going to be anything left to eat except for you. You'll be the long pork. So you don't want to be the long pork. So that's why I am trying to encourage you guys to think ahead, work to try to prevent this if you can, but prepare in case we can't, because the time is short, and I'm very skeptical that we got time to do it before all this is going to go down now. It's just looking too short now. The best thing we can do now is prepare, pray, and prepare. Prep and pray. I say it every day. All right, you going to add to that? Joshua?
You hit the nail on the head. The only thing I got to add is speaking of calories, I researched most all of the, survival food preps that are out there for freeze-dried food, and it turns out that My Patriot Supply has the better bang for your buck when it comes to calories. So yeah, I agree with that.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's only about $3 a meal. I mean, people complain about the price, but then that's because they seldom buy 2 weeks or a month's worth of food at a time. You go to the grocery store and you just keep buying and see if you can get it that cheap. It ain't happening.
Yep.
But hey, this stuff lasts 25 years, and it's easy to bury, easy to take out, easy to take with you. Pop it up and throw some pouches in your backpack. It's a lot easier than carrying a can around. This can right here is only like 2 servings, where one of those pouches is 4. This thing's hard, it's heavy. You stick it in your backpack, and I'll put a few back in there, and you're gonna be wishing you didn't have it back there. So that's a good way to look at it. But that can will last a long time too if you treat it correctly and it don't get bent or punctured and rusted through and all those kinds of things. And I want to talk about that too. So my friends, get ready, prepare, prep and pray, and let's hope this don't come. But it's not looking pretty, not looking pretty. Artie, Jonathan, Joshua, excuse me. I was thinking about Hollerman there for a minute. Joshua, I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your service. I appreciate what you do for this country. And let's hope that we can continue to keep ourselves free and independent, and that these things don't happen. I do believe that the best way to keep from getting invaded and picked on is to have a strong defense. If you're strong, people don't pick on you. If you're the strong kid on the block, people are not going to be trying to kick you over. When you're the weak kid, they're going to kick you and steal your candy and run away. And I think that's what's happening in the United States on this very day, is we're not perceived to be as strong as we could be. And I think we can be. I think it's a shame that we've let our guard down. So, Jonathan, thank you. Joshua, excuse me again. You want to say a final word?
Oh man, thank you. Thank you for your service in the Army, and I appreciate everything you do. So thanks for having me, and look forward to working with you in the future. All
right, very good. Well, we'll see you on some of the task force calls. All right, everybody. Yes. Thank y'all for watching, and just remember, prep and pray. Get ready for the worst kind of day. And what I'm going to say, thank you for watching, and Greg out.